The girl was on her way home from school, when suddenly, footsteps echoed behind her. She quickly turned around to check, only to find two thugs closely following her. The girl immediately tensed up, and hurriedly turned to run. But the thugs chased after her relentlessly. Realizing they were about to catch up, the girl quickly hid in an alley. However, as soon as she ran in, she was caught. The thugs rushed in and pinned her down. They taped her mouth shut, and soon the girl lost her breath completely. But this incident didn't cause any disturbance. The killers went on living their peaceful lives. It wasn't until a few days later that David was suddenly stopped by two soldiers after work. They forcibly dragged him out of the car, and then began beating him. They dragged him into a warehouse. Before David could react, Jack handed him a blank sheet of paper, forcing him to write down the crime process and the names of his accomplices. David without hesitation refused. This immediately enraged Jack, who grabbed an iron rod nearby and aimed it at him. After a long period of torture, David finally trembled and confessed everything. But Jack didn't kill him. Instead, he threw him out onto the street. Jack knew he was just an accomplice. Meanwhile, the second killer came out of the temple, only to be knocked unconscious and captured by Jack's men. After the same kind of forced confession, the killer revealed everything. Jack then angrily scolded him, before once again throwing him onto the street. Feeling guilty, the killer returned to his car, left a farewell message for his wife, and ended his sinful life. At the same time, the torture made David hate Jack with all his heart. So, he secretly snuck back to the base, planning to take revenge on Jack. But to his surprise, he discovered that the soldiers were just ordinary people, who had gathered because they couldn't stand the killers roaming free, and used their own way to uphold justice. Soon Jack found the mastermind behind the murders, but when the man saw the girl's photo, he showed no remorse. Instead, he claimed he had protection, and demanded they release him immediately. But Jack ignored him completely, and pressed the button on the chair. After a painful round of torture, the mastermind not only confessed to the crime, but also revealed the protector behind him. David saw everything with his own eyes. The next day, Jack and his team disguised themselves as investigators, and captured one of the protectors, a general. But when the general saw the girl's photo, he showed no fear. In fact, he even began taunting Jack. Jack immediately ordered his men to put a toxic mask on him. The poison entered his body through his breathing, and the intense pain was unbearable for him. He had no choice but to confess to all his crimes. But soon, he realized they weren't investigators at all, and began questioning Jack's identity. Seeing that Jack didn't answer, the general became even more arrogant. Finally, Jack couldn't take it anymore and pulled out his gun, aiming it at him. Everyone froze for a moment. When they came to their senses, they hurriedly buried the body in the back mountains. Then, they disguised themselves as cleaners, and captured the last person. Jack took out the photo of the girl and said he was her father. Everything was for the sake of avenging his daughter. But the killer still stubbornly argued without remorse. Jack immediately prepared to end him, but one of his companions suddenly stopped him. The thirst for revenge clouded Jack's mind. After a brief struggle, his companion locked him onto the radiator. The killer, seeing this, took the chance to try and turn the two against each other, promising them endless wealth. The two were instantly swayed, and their gaze slowly turned toward Jack.